there. But thank you again for joining us on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, and we are going way into the breach. We have a great conversation for you tonight. We're pointing out both the fact that the Republicans, okay, at least as far as, we're going to talk about it, it seems that they want to build this country up. It seems like the Democrats, and we're going to give a prime example of that, an elected mayor of a major American city who's actively trying to tear down his own city, and we're going to say how, in fact, he's doing that. And really, contrast these things. And we were just in the chat room. We got cut off, unfortunately, but we're back. Somebody had commented, Janet commented in the chat room. And just to say before we get into the show, because we can't talk about everything, but we're going to talk about, prioritize everything. Janet said she's done with our show because the Pope says we're not supposed to take a political side. I never heard that. I'm sorry. In all of Catholic history,
I think it's more directed for clergy. Clergy, you're not clergy. The church is not Democratic or Republican. I think she's misconstruing the comments. I mean, at the end of the day, you vote for who is the best candidate based on their policies. And that's very clear from a Catholic perspective, because you cannot be for abortion and be Catholic. Can't do it. Sorry.
Right, and that's not a political position. That's a moral position.
Right, it's an intrinsic evil.
Tired of people making abortion a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's what Sister Dee Dee said the other night. We're going to get into that at the Republican National Convention. Knows, if you can't, the laws that you have reflect how you view your fellow human beings as a society. And abortion, as being legal in America, reflects what Americans think of human beings, that they could be snuffed out in the womb. So no, Janet, you're wrong. And as far as it goes, I absolutely could talk about political issues. It's within my prudential judgment as a Catholic to talk about taxes, the environment, immigration, foreign policy, and everything else. In fact, not only can we have an obligation to contribute to our society as Roman Catholics. And that means taking political sides. Janet, so you're wrong. I'm sorry, respectfully, but you're wrong. Joe Resinello, where are we going?
Well, like we said, there's so much to talk about this week between Kenosha, Wisconsin, between the RNC convention, all the speeches. So we kind of had to pare things down. Obviously, we have to discuss the RNC convention. We're going to focus primarily on the last night, particularly Trump's comments. I think there's enough there which we can get a good flavor for it. And then we're going to go to a few speeches. We're going to focus on Tim Scott and Nick Sandmann. There were many speeches, fantastic speeches. I guess my first comment, even before I get to the Trump final remarks at the RNC, were the thing I liked about it, and I guess this is just my commentary just to begin, was it was a convention of regular people. He focused on normal people like the widow of Captain Dorn. You had Nick Sandmann. You had the father from whose daughter was killed in Florida.
They didn't look like the 1% to me, Joe Resinello.
It was just like normal people, and I think that was brilliant because that's the type of people that the voters can relate to. It could be your neighbor. It could be the person that's online at the ShopRite, waiting, at the register. Mm-hmm. I think that was a brilliant stroke.
How many rich people were on their stage at the DNC? How many rich liberal elites were on the stage?
Well, that's what it is. I mean, it's one thing, when you have people, powerful people talking, but it's another thing. These were just normal people,
right? And
primarily, there was a lot of them. I thought that was great.
That was great, and we got to
say that just off, to begin.
No, I think you're, and it's again, we're contrasting two views of America. One of them claims to love the poor, and they put a bunch of rich liberals up there, and they claim that the other side hates the poor, and they put up all the everymen on there. Like you said, Nick Sandmann, the people from St. Louis. By the way, you'll be pleased to find out Paul's checking in from Sierra Leone.
Wow.
We right now are being watched on the continent of Africa. I'm very proud of that. Paul, thank you for joining us, brother. God bless you. So where are we headed, Joe?
So we'll talk about some of Trump's final comments at the RNC. We'll just focus there. I think it'll spark a good conversation. The president, and this is his he spoke for like an hour. Some people said he spoke too long. I think it was just a great speech. It was a speech that wasn't off the cuff. Obviously, it was right from the teleprompter. It was crafted, but it was disciplined. And there was a lot of very interesting things said. The president's speech began and finished with American history, distilling the platform he ran on and the accomplishments of his administration into an hour-long address, as I just said. It focused on promises made and promises kept. Its themes included industry and fairer trade deals versus outsourcing and China, law and order and police versus lawlessness, murder and defunding movements, and late-term abortion versus the innocent unborn, and a moral America. Characterizing former Vice President Biden as a weak betrayer of the American worker. The president said, and I quote, "For 47 years, Joe Biden took the donations of blue-collar workers, gave them hugs." This drew laughter. He even said even kisses, because we know Joe Biden likes to give hugs and kisses.
That was a funny, I'm sorry. I mean, you used to talk about discipline, right? And Trump was very disciplined. That's one thing. He can't win either way. When he's undisciplined, they say, you know, he should be more scripted. And then when he's more scripted, they say, well, you know, he's at his best when he's, you know, when he's undisciplined. So you can't win with the left.
Sad.
But I will tell you, from a purely stylistic and presentational point of view, he nailed that. He nailed, because it was, I couldn't help but laugh.
Naturally funny.
He's naturally a funny guy.
And he's witty.
And when he said that, he goes, you know, hugs and kisses, and people were like that. It was that slow growing like moments of laughter, but it's true. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
And he told them he felt their pain, talking about Biden, who basically, like he said, took donations from blue collar workers. And then he flew back to Washington and voted to ship their jobs to China and many other distant lands. The Democrats, it's funny. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and I've watched how the shift of the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Years ago, the working man was for the Democratic Party. It clearly isn't the case anymore. It really isn't. And it's based upon basically the fruit of your policies. The Democrats really didn't do much for the economy under Barack Obama. This is going to be one of the lies that Joe Biden is going to basically try to communicate. I can't wait to see it. He's going to say, I gave you your economy. I can't wait to see Donald Trump's response to that. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard of or ever frigging can even imagine coming out of Joe Biden's mouth. But just talking about the blue-collar man, Joe Biden is trying to make himself out to be a moderate, and he's for the working man. Sadly, the party has shifted. The Democratic Party is now a party of fringe groups, radical elements in the LGBT community, radical elements in the African-American community, radical elements from a socialistic perspective. And also it's the party of postgraduates and elites, highly educated people dwelling in cities, people who make a ridiculous amount of money that are above the fray. Regardless of who becomes the president, they're not affected.
Right.
This is now the party that the Democratic, that's the demographic that they're going for, and that's who their voters are.
You know what's funny? As Margaret's joined, it says, we as Catholics can, in capital letters, can have an opinion. I'm a lifelong Catholic. Trump 2020. Check out Father Ripperger about this election being good versus evil. Amen, Margaret. You say it on the show all the time. All you got to do is look at their platform. Or Jesse Romero was on our show twice now, 2 or 3 times. Okay,
3 times.
3 times he's been on our show. The last time he was on, he was talking about a Catholic case of Trump. He says, when you line up the political positions of the satanic movement in America or the Satanic Church of America and the Democrat Party positions, he says they parallel each other. That's and Jesse's researched that. It's in his book, okay? A Catholic Case for Trump. So, Margaret, you're exactly right. And by the way, we have another one, West African from Ghana, joining to watch the front line with Joe and Joe. Remember, it's something interesting. You talk about the elites being on the left. You know what we always have to listen to is about this great migration out of the Democrat Party. All the white racists left the Democrat Party and they went into the Republican Party. Do you know what? One of the things, and this is why we all need to read people who know what the hell they're talking about instead of listening to their stupid talking points. One of the biggest reasons why Ronald Reagan was elected in 1980, you remember the blue-collar Democrats, the Reagan Democrats, okay? A lot of those people that it always gets neglected that brought Reagan into power were conservative, Catholic Democrats, working class people who were disgusted after 1973 and the Supreme Court decision in Roe versus Wade. But that always gets overlooked. You know what I mean? So what do you leave as these good people leave the Democrat Party because they see that, and they just started with abortion. Now it's gone, like you said, now it's gone completely off the deep end.
Well, I mean,
right?
you see,
these people have been, they're disgusted. But then when the RNC turns around, like we've been saying, and says, look at all these working people. Look at all these everymen and every women, okay? Then the leftist media says, oh, they're just a bunch of props. Well, what are you going to, how can you please these people in the leftist media? If you put up rich Republicans like Mitt Romney, you're an elitist, okay? And if you put up, let's say, the Nick Sandmanns of the world, and all the African Americans, they're all working class, blue collar people, well, then you're using them as props. You can't win with these people. You really can't.
Well, I mean, ultimately, again, I look for trends that I see with my own eyes. I live in Southern Bergen County, New Jersey. It is solidly middle class, a lot of union workers, cops, Teamsters. And I see the flags. I see the Trump bumper stickers. This is not an area that has historically voted for a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
This is New Jersey. It's the bluest of blue states. And this is a union area. I grew up here. I know the people well. These are trends. And this is what has flipped. Trump is now appealing to the common man, whether they like it or not. That's the truth. And, it's Andrew Yang, isn't that?
Yeah.
He said something interesting. I read a commentary. It was almost like talking like post-mortem, like after he was thrown out. And he was basically saying when he was campaigning, when he was involved when he was running, trying to become the nominee, he basically said that he would go to people and say, I'm a Democrat, like regular people. And they would almost grimace. Mm-hmm. They would just be like, oh, and he said, we have to change that. And I'll be honest with you, he's right. That's a very honest response. The Democratic Party, I've been saying this for probably about, no exaggeration, 6 years. They have to come to the center. If they need to reinvent themselves, and Donald Trump is simply exploiting that. They haven't figured it out, and the reason why they haven't figured it out is because they're ideologues. They're listening to Tom Perez and Barack Obama. By the way, this is the third term of Barack Obama.
Yeah, let's get that straight.
This is his presidency.
Yes, to be clear about that.
He is the power behind all of it. It's an absolute fact. And if you ask me, unlike Donald Trump, he does not have his finger on the pulse of America. He didn't as the president.
No.
Barack Obama really didn't get that much done. For 6 of his 8 years, he didn't have the House or the Senate.
Thank God.
Barack Obama, if you look at his presidency, and I'm not talking about it from the perspective of I don't like him, which I don't, as far as policies, speaking from a policy perspective, he was not effective. Like it or not, I'll give it to him that he was the first African-American president, but he was not an effective president. He did not know how to shift. Bill Clinton did. When Bill Clinton lost the House and the Senate, he moved to the middle. Barack Obama does not understand it, and this particular Democratic Party doesn't understand it either. They have to shake out of that and relate to the regular man, because the elite, there aren't that many. If you think about it, if you look at the country as a whole, it's a losing proposition.
It is a losing proposition, but what you're saying would be true if what the Democrats wanted to do was govern. You know what I'm trying to say? But they don't want to govern. They want to rule. See, that's the difference. Donald Trump is governing the nation. He is trying without throwing a bone to everybody like the Democrats do. He's trying to raise the country up. I don't care what all you Democrats say. And I particularly don't care what all you Catholic Democrats say. I really don't. You want to talk about kids in cages and all that. Go check. There's people here from New Jersey. Go look at children's services and how they rip children out of their mother's arms every single day. And every one of those agencies that are staffed with people that are going to vote for Joe Biden. So spare me, okay? Donald Trump is trying to govern America. The left is trying to rule America. That's why you have them not appealing to the center. They're trying to scratch and claw this guy across the finish line, and then they will rule you. And are we getting into that later? I think our last story we're going to talk about how they're basically coming after you. They want to rule you, rule over you. They're not interested in governing you. See, somebody who governs allows the society, because they have rights. We have rights, at least I think we do right now. To function. Rulers want to do this. They want to keep the boot on your face, And yes, that's what Barack Obama and Tom Perez and their tool, Joe Biden, tools with an S, plural, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to do. So spare me that Donald Trump has children in cages.
Well, we're gonna talk. I want to give a quote that he basically gave in his final address. I thought it was pretty powerful. But I just want to comment on something that someone just said in the chat room. Sharon said Donald Trump is another Hitler. I'll be honest, Sharon, I don't understand that. I really don't. I for the life of me, I can't understand it. Like when people say that, like, listen, I wouldn't even say that Barack Obama is another Hitler. I don't even know how you could possibly say that. I don't. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, and I say it respectfully, I don't get your logic.
No, that's just name. Look, no offense, okay, to Sharon. That's just name calling. You know, why don't you go check and see all the things the Nazis were in favor of, and see how strikingly familiar it is to you when you compare the positions of the Nazis to those of the Democratic Party, including environment and all the social issues, which Germany had a substantial, all right, socialist, government. They were the National Socialists. When you look at their positions, they're almost identical to the Democrat Party. And let's not forget the Nazi position on abortion and eugenics, which is identical to the Democrat Party. To call Donald Trump Hitler is just, it shows, Sharon, respectfully, a bit of ignorance on your part. If you could provide us with a couple examples, we'll listen. But it just sounds like name calling to us.
Well, let me give you this quote from Donald Trump. I thought it was particularly powerful, but it also, I think, echoes a theme that Joe and I have basically said since we started our show 2 years ago. This is what he had to say. He said, Joe Biden claims he has empathy for the vulnerable. This is obviously one of the themes of the Democratic Party, particularly under Joe Biden. He's for the little man. I'll repeat it again. Joe Biden claims he has empathy for the vulnerable, yet the party leads Yet the party leads support for extreme late-term abortion of defenseless babies right up to the moment of birth. Trump reminded attendees, Democratic leaders talk about moral decency, but they have no problem with stopping a baby's beating heart in the 9th month of pregnancy. Now, I love the way he phrased this because, like, I always look how people parse words. He said, yet the party leads. You see, Joe Biden in the debate, mark my words, because this is going to happen, when Donald Trump brings this up, and he will, he's going to say, I'm not for late-term abortions, but I can't impose my will on another person. That's what Joe Biden is going to say. But yet, look at what Donald Trump just said. He said, yet the party leads. That means you, Joe Biden, you are the head of the party. Your party is leading this cause and is basically imposing it upon the American people. And in many respects, because we, as taxpayers, fund Planned Parenthood, we're paying for it. So watch out for that parsing of words in the debate. And what he's saying is very true. And sadly, too many people compartmentalize this issue. You cannot say you're for the vulnerable and support this. You can't. Any social justice warrior out there who tells me that they're fighting for rights for the marginalized, yada, 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 you pick the person, be it blacks, be it American Indians, be it Hispanics, be it low-income workers. You pick the issue. You cannot say you are for the vulnerable and be for a 3rd trimester abortion.
Can I go to him for a second? I just want to throw something out there. Let's be clear about Joe's position and our position on this show, because there's a lot of this going on social media about the ethic, the consistent ethic of life, and to be pro-life means all these things. To be pro-life in America right now means to be anti-abortion. Abortion, my position on abortion, and what I feel about immigration, the environment, the death penalty, our foreign policy, all of it means nothing. The central issue is abortion. To be pro-life means you are anti-abortion. Everything else is subordinate to that. That's the position of the front line with Joe and Joe. I'm not going to let anybody conflate that issue, baby murder, with every other issue out there. Every single one of those other issues that I mentioned falls under my prudential judgment Abortion does not, because abortion is an intrinsic evil. And here's another thing. You can't get any of those other issues right if you can't respect the right to life. First and foremost, like Joe said, you want to reach out to the marginalized, reach out to the babies in the womb and protect their lives. And then we could talk about immigration and foreign policy and the environment and all of the things that the left wants to talk about. But I'm not talking about anything with you until you get abortion right. So stop putting abortion in with everything else. Abortion is its own issue in America and needs to be abolished. Under no circumstances should babies die in the womb, period, exclamation point.
And again, it's radical abortion. We're one of 7 countries in the world that support third trimester abortion. All the socialist countries in Europe do not support this.
France doesn't.
Italy,
France doesn't.
Spain,
Italy.
all of them. None of them, actually. So this is where the Democrats, they become a radicalized party. And it's got to change. I'm hoping that they lose, and they lose big, because maybe it'll shake some sense into them. It'll be good for the country as a whole. Listen, as long as you're for, same-sex marriage and abortion, I'm never voting for you. I'm just telling you that. I mean, but who am I? I'm just a regular guy, but I'm telling you where I stand. However, a Democrat that is a little bit more economically reasonable, while I'm not going to vote for you, you're not going to destroy the country. This party, this is the most radical platform I have ever seen in my entire life. And here's another thing, and we've covered this on other shows, and I just want to bring it up again because it's important. There are people who are not voting for Donald Trump simply because they don't like him, and they're going to vote for Joe Biden. That to me, what that's like, that to me is saying, I am going to eat dog poop because I don't like broccoli. That's basically the analogy to me. Are you crazy? Just because you don't like him? Look at his platform. Barack Obama, I read today in the news, is basically saying, because obviously he's trying to court the Bernie Sanders voter, he basically said that they're very similar. Obviously, it's rhetoric, and he's trying to court the voter. But that just shows you that Joe Biden is not a moderate. He is not a moderate. This party is basically trying to impose $10 trillion of spending. That's his budget. These are not my words. These are his. Read the Biden Sanders. It's a 110-page document. They basically
the Unity Task Force.
$10 trillion worth of add-ons. That's absurd.
Yeah, I want to mention one thing, only because this is a very important issue about how Democrats treat their own party members. Sharon, we love you, Sharon. Let's say that first of all. You make a very good point. You say, you don't approve of abortion. This is why you're not happy with your party. Now, you go on to say more, you don't like Trump. It's a worst election. Okay, I get it. You say you're not happy with your party. Sharon, I want to just enlighten you a little bit here. Your party has made it clear that you're not welcome because you're not in lockstep on abortion. It's not Donald Trump you have to have a problem with, who has shown himself to be a pragmatic politician. Okay, it's the extremists in your own party who have told you, not us. We welcome you. We love you. We could talk. You're against abortion. So are we. Your party has told you to leave. So think about that when you want to bash Donald Trump. Remember, Tom Perez and Andrew Cuomo and others have said, you're not welcome in that party. That's what they said to the 22 million pro-life Democrats, 22 million people who asked for slight language changes in the platform. You know what they were told? Kick rocks. That's what they were told. We're not changing the language at all. Your party, Sharon, your party has rejected you. They have.
And that's why, to be honest with you, they have to, all the leadership of the Democratic Party currently has to go. With that said, I want to focus on some speeches. There were so many good ones. I want to talk a little bit about Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott. He's from South Carolina.
Good speech, horrible reaction.
He talked about his life story and how he lived with his mom and his grandmother in a 2-bedroom home after his parents' divorce. He said that he thought he had to use football to succeed and did not concentrate on his academics and failed out. He says even when he was failing out of the 9th grade, his mom told him after working a 16-hour day to shoot for the moon because if you fail, you'll fall among the stars. Scott says he won. This is interesting, and I want to discuss it afterwards because I think it's a very important comment. Scott says he won this race, this is in South Carolina, against Storm Thurmond's son because of the evolution of the Southern heart, because voters in an overwhelmingly white district judged him by the content of his character and not the color of his skin. Scott says we are not fully where we are supposed to be, but thanks be to God, we're not where we used to be with regard to race. Now, the big argument with the Democrats is their systematic racism in America. This is obviously a young black man. He ran in an overwhelmingly white district and won. You cannot make a claim of systematic racism if that happens.
Especially since those people that elected him are the ones who are always being reminded are the racists in this country. Because guess what? They're white people, probably Christian, white Christians from South Carolina. But Tim Scott got elected. But go ahead.
He's basically saying, obviously, there are racists in America. No one's saying that there are not. I would say so. I mean, I'm involved in an interracial marriage. My wife is black. I have biracial children. I've seen racism in people's. I've seen it in their faces, and I've heard it in their voices. I mean, that's me. So would I say that there are racists? Clearly. But to say that the country is systematic a systematic racism across America, this man would never have been elected. We elected a black president, and many white people voted for Barack Obama. It's not a fair statement, and frankly, it's not an intelligent one.
But Joe, it's a lie, and we know it's a lie. But listen, they don't like. We were talking earlier about somebody called Trump Hitler. Nobody takes a bigger page out of the Nazis' playbook, Dr. Joseph Goebbels' playbook, than the Democrats. Concoct the lie. The bigger the lie, and the more often you repeat it, the more people will believe it. Doesn't matter that they're lying. And Joe, as you pointed out, they know they're lying when they call America racist. America might be the least racist country in this world. The least racist.
Actually, that woman, I don't recall her. I can't say her name properly. She's a Somalian, something Ahari or something like that. She's a woman. She's in the press. She speaks often. She comes from Somalia. I think, to be honest with you, she discusses a lot of human rights issues. Anyway. I can't recall her name off the top of my head. I could see it in my mind's eye. She basically said America, and she's coming from an outsider's perspective because she wasn't born here, is the least racist country in the world. It treats homosexuals better than any country in the world. It treats women better than any country. This is a black woman coming from Africa.
Right.
Again, Tim Scott's saying, are there problems? Of course there are. Let's be real. But to say that there is systematic racism in America, I don't think it's fair.
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's true.
I also don't think it's accurate.
By the way, I want to make one point. If America banned, Longinus is with us in the chat room, said the Supreme Court decided it was a privacy issue. The way abortion really gets rectified in this country, all you good people out there, please follow Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube at the Front Line with Joe and Joe. Like, subscribe, share this video. Hell, make it go viral. Come on, man. Joe Biden always says it, right? Come on, man. Come on. If abortion was declared illegal by the Supreme Court tomorrow as being unconstitutional, an unconstitutional violation of the right to life, and gay marriage was overturned, I would make the argument women and the LGBT crowd would still have more freedom in this country than they do anywhere else in the world. If you were to reverse gay marriage and outlaw abortion tomorrow, the women and homosexuals and lesbians in this country still have it better than anywhere else in the world. Because just because we don't accept something doesn't mean that we're not tolerant. That's another conversation to get into, because what the left wants is they want you to not be tolerant. They want you to accept and affirm everything that they believe in, and we don't. So let's get it straight when it comes to systematic racism and women are oppressed and gays are oppressed. You want to be oppressed if you're gay? Go to the Middle East and see what happens to you.
They'll throw you off a roof.
And when you want to bash Christians in America, you are very tolerated. No, in fact, nobody singles you out. I don't. I never did. Well, my attitude was always the same. But I think the sodomy is a sin. The church teaches it. I don't go around telling homosexuals, hey, pointing my finger in their face. I've never singled anybody out. They're the ones that made this issue, because it's part of the culture war. It's part of the way they they belittle people and they attack people and they make them seem intolerant and unloving and hateful and all that stuff. We know it's a tactic. You're not going to convince me that I hate gay people, or I'm trying to oppress women because I want to protect babies in the womb. Give me a break.
Tim Scott went on to say, he said, Biden and Harris want a cultural revolution, and if we let them, they will try to turn America into a socialist utopia. Scott says his family went, and this is a great line, from cotton to Congress in one lifetime, and that's why he thinks America's next century can be better than her last. He says supporting the Republican ticket gives you the best chance to make that a reality. Let me focus on that for a moment. You see what he just said, cotton to Congress? You see, that's only possible in this country. Socialism makes it so much harder to raise yourself out of your class. What do I mean by that? Say you're born in England and your father is a milkman. If you do not have a superior intellect, meaning, by the luck of the genetic draw, you're born with like a ridiculous intellect, odds on you will be a milkman too. America, capitalism, gives you an opportunity to do just what he just said. And socialism makes it incredibly difficult to do that. That's a reality.
And we're living proof of that because his father is a barber. My father was a teamster. All right. And him and his brother and me and my brother and sister, we all went to school.
Absolutely.
Every single one of us. Okay. And the thing is, I'm sorry, you can't just do this in any other country.
It doesn't happen. And that's what, and that's the sad thing about people who are embracing this idea of socialism. First of all, it puts mud into the economic system. That's what happened with Barack Obama. And this is why that's a lie when Joe Biden said, I handed you this economy. No, you didn't. You overregulated it, and you had the third highest corporate tax in the world.
And along the lines of what you're saying, what did Donald Trump do? Along the lines of what you're saying, cut taxes and deregulate.
And they'll say, and sadly, too many people who are not really thinking properly or not deep thinkers, they'll say, well, of course we have to tax corporations. We're taxing the rich and giving to. No, you're not. The rich people employ you. Do you get it? This is a basic economic idea. When you strangle wealthy corporations, you know what they do? They fire.
Right.
They cut their staff. Yep. It's that simple. And it's not done with going to the Congress and then the Senate. It's a phone call. We need to cut 17% of our staff. And it's done. Right. In a matter of frigging days.
I want to just address something real quick. Sarah Sue Spencer's in the chat room. Hi, Sarah Sue. She said, we're actually a capitalist socialist society. You are speaking our language. Okay, because when we talk about our free market, Sarah Sue, Joe and I are trying to say is we're not very happy with the current capitalist system either, because we don't think, like you, we don't think it represents what true free enterprise is supposed to be about. We do want to see broader ownership of the means of production. We want to see more asset ownership, like land and homes. Okay, we want to see higher wages. We want to see, oh, here's a bad word for all those conservative Republicans. We want to see a certain level of protectionism for our workers and our industry and our manufacturing base. So we're with you on that. But here's what we're not in favor of, and I think you're in agreement with this. But we're not overthrowing the system. That's what the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs want to do. They want to burn it all down. Like we started this conversation by saying, the RNC and Donald Trump want to raise Americans up. So are there reforms needed in our capitalist system? Absolutely. There are things we could talk about to make our system more just and more better, or better. So we wanted to just emphasize to you, we're in agreement. Our system needs a lot of work, but one thing we don't need to do is we don't need to turn to the socialists, because they will wreck us all. They will wreck us all. Like Joe said, his father was a barber. That means he would have been a barber under a socialist system. My father loaded trucks. That means I would have loaded trucks and not had an opportunity to go to school. Remember the difference, Joe. That's why we started out. Trump is trying to raise people up. The difference between a Donald Trump and the horrid crew on the left is the real American wants all people to make it, to prosper. Okay, the left wants to make everybody equal, everybody equally miserable, and that's what it always comes down to. They want to tear the top down rather than bring the bottom up. That's not just a cliche; it's true.
But Socialism doesn't tear the top down. What it does is it fortifies the top. It solidifies their position and pushes everyone else down. Socialism, countries that are socialistic, go to Europe. You know, if you leave Rome or you leave Paris and you go maybe half an hour on the train, it gets poor real fast. What we see is the cities. You go outside of Rome by train, 45 minutes. It gets poor fast. People don't have teeth in their 60s. They don't go to the dentist. They don't own homes. That's what it is. But again, to have in this country, you have to work hard. I mean, that's the reality. And it can be done. I know people. I went to high school with people like that who basically came from very modest means and they knocked the ball out of the park. They just worked really hard. It can be done. But I want to talk a little bit about the reaction to Tim Scott. Obviously, he's an African-American man coming out of South Carolina. This is what basically the liberal media did. They trashed him, and they called him Trump's Coon Squad.
I cannot believe that phrase was used.
And then he said this was hashtag Uncle Tom was trending on Twitter after he spoke, and others were tweeting Uncle Tim. Lance Strong for Hip Hop Wired, I guess it's a periodical, he told readers exactly what he thought of those black voices. And this was the headline. He basically said, Trump trots out sunken place Sambos. Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott and Herschel Walker for RNC first night. In showing their true colors, it's apparent that there are those who can't handle strong black voices, who speak in favor of their preferred candidate for the sole disqualifying reason that the candidate is a Republican. It should be clear to anyone with any type of objectivity who the real racists are.
Do you hear? I want to know who's using the word, the N-word. Who's using the word coon? Are you on crack? I want to see him say that to Herschel Walker's face.
Oh, my God.
I want to see him say that to Tim Scott. Go call Herschel Walker a coon. What's his name? Lance Strong for Hip Hop Wired. You go up to Herschel Walker and you go call him a coon. If your jaw is not on the floor, I'd be shocked. How about this other one? This is another dude, okay, who really just the anger meter gets going. This is, of course, Mother Jones, a real communist, publication. Okay, so this is Tommy Craggs. Okay, just his name alone makes me want to cringe. Tommy Craggs. He's like Cartman in South Park. Tommy Craggs, right? Tommy Craggs said, "How badly did they want to say the N-word?" That's how he described the Republicans, and including Donald Trump, of course, had racist in charge, putting Tim Scott, Alice Johnson, Herschel Walker, all these a lot of black Democrats. Putting them all up there, basically saying that every white person out there who watched that and applauded all those people like Alice Johnson, who was pardoned by the racist Donald Trump, but was kept in jail by the non-racist Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Okay? He says, how badly did they want to use the N-word? I'll tell you what. I'll tell this to Mr. Craggs. Tell that to me to my face. Okay? Come up to me and say how badly I want to use the N-word. Because guess what, Mr. Craggs? Like Joe's wife is black, my wife is her sister. So she's black too. Come up to my face and say it. Go up to Herschel Walker and say it. You wouldn't last 3 seconds, my friend. Not because we're violent men, because you think you're a tough guy. You're a computer, internet, social media tough guy. If you told Herschel Walker that, he'd have laid you right out. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when he did.
It's just sad. Racism works both ways. And frankly, just like I basically said, I mean, who's the racist? Why can't a black man support a Republican? Simply. I mean, it's that simple. Why can't, I'll repeat it again, why can't a black man support a Republican? I don't see a problem with that.
Because black people are supposed to be good little slaves to the Democrat Party and do everything that the master tells you to do, the master of the Democrat Party. That's what, and if you stray from that, well, you're like a runaway slave. You're a renegade. You got to get caught and be brought back and whipped. I don't care if this is harsh language. That's the way they operate. That's the way they've always operated. We saw it when we were kids with Clarence Thomas and Thomas Sowell. People whose intellects crushed these people. Okay? But that's what your argument has always been. If you don't listen to the Democrat Party, then you're a racist. But you keep these people in chains. So when they stray like off of your plantation, then they become the coon or they become the N-word. That's what happens. Because why, Joe? Because they're not interested in black people. They're not interested in Hispanics. They're not interested in gay people. They're not interested in women. They're interested in political power. That's what they're interested in. Period. That's it.
So let's shift gears. Another very powerful.
I'm sorry I got so angry.
No.
I mean, it's an angering subject.
No, but it's a sad subject because it also shows that racism is alive and well in America, and it also comes from the black side of the house. These are black people basically saying some pretty harsh things. All Herschel Walker and Tim Scott are doing is supporting the Republican. That's it. And they have a right to have their views. By the way, you have a right to have your views. You don't have a right to call people horrible names. That's sad. And that's why I bring up Nick Sandmann, because they called him horrible names and he sued them and he won. And I love it. And I've said this many, many times on our shows, on different venues, on the Crusade Channel, on Holy Faith Media and alike. This is how you have to beat them. You have to take them to the mat in the courts. And that's why it's so important that we elect Donald Trump, because we need constitutionalists, not conservative judges. I want constitutionalists. I want people to read the law as it's written. The Constitution is one of the most magnificent documents ever crafted. All I ask is to read the document as it's written. And that's basically what Nick Sandmann did, and he won. These were some of the highlights from his speech. During his speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial, Sandmann criticized the mainstream news outlets for being driven by anti-Christian, anti-conservative, anti-Donald Trump bias. That's absolutely true.
I love Nick Sandmann. I love this kid.
And speaking of his settlements with the Washington Post and CNN, and I'm sure it was a good buck, he said, I would not be canceled. I fought back hard to expose the media for what they did to me, and I won a personal victory. He's so right. Mm-hmm. He's so right. And this is exactly what we have to do. Molly Hemingway, who's one of our favorite authors and journalists, we quote her often. This is what she had to say, and it's very, very important to note. She said, if any media apologized for the role they played in trying to destroy this child, he's a 16-year-old boy at the time when this happened, it's not well known. It was a reminder of how powerful and unaccountable major media outlets are, particularly when they join mobs to attack their conservative political opponents.
And how did they know he was a conservative political opponent? Because he put on a MAGA hat. But why did he put on a MAGA hat? Put on a MAGA hat because he was at the pro-life march. He was at the March for Life. That's where he was, which ultimately Joe and I have said on the show a million times. The reason why Donald Trump is hated so much is because of abortion. Judges/abortion. Okay? Because that's their diabolical sacrament that they need to keep in place at all costs. Nick Sandmann put on a MAGA hat at the March for Life. Not only is he showing his support for Donald Trump, he's making a statement that Donald Trump is the most pro-life president in American history. I think he said that in his speech also.
And why can't he do that?
Because it's not
but I'm just saying from an American perspective. Think about this.
But you're talking about it like you're an American because you are an American and you're an objective American and you don't want to take other people's rights away. I don't want to take other people's rights away. But no offense, Joe, I love you. You're giving the left too much credit.
No, but I'm saying, why do we, people who vote for this platform, not see that? You have every right to think the way you do. But you don't have a right to take away my right to think the way I do.
Right.
You see, that's what they're trying to do, and that's what they did to Nick Sandmann. They tried to destroy him, and they did it wrongly. And he took them to court, and he took them to frigging the woodshed, and it's not over.
No, there's a lot more on the list.
Right.
And by the way, now that he's got, I imagine he got a really good settlement.
My gosh,
and by the way,
so
Paul Chiatz is joining us from the Angry Catholic. He said, that's the angry I'm talking about. I'm angry tonight, Paul. I'm angry tonight. And for all you viewers out there, Paul and his wife, Kristen, they have a channel, a show, podcast called the Angry Catholic. So we encourage you all because they support us. We support them. We love each other. We got the same message. angrycatholic.com, www.angrycatholic.com. Just throwing that out there. Now, Nick Sandmann has some money in the bank. Would you agree?
Oh,
he's got a little bit of bucks. Now, what I would do if I was Lynn Wood, I'd say, look, Nick, here's the deal. Let's say he got $10 million between both. Let's say a settlement, right? He netted out after Lynn Wood gets paid and everything else, about $10 million. He's doing good, okay? Lynn Wood says, you want to make a real statement? These next lawsuits coming up, don't settle. Take them to court for the full amount. Bring it to a verdict in a courtroom so that if they lose, Joe, now they do have to pay tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. Now that'll get their attention. Now, we can only hope that'll happen. I said before, and Joe has said before, after what they did to Nick Sandmann, I hope that kid never has to work a day in his life. I hope Lynn Wood, I would imagine Lynn Wood got him a good settlement. God bless Nick Sandmann for standing up. God bless him, by the way, also. He did something I wouldn't have been able to do. I'm being honest, okay? Even when I was 16 or 52. If Nathan Phillips came up and got in my face and started banging the drum in my face, I don't know that I would have reacted with as much composure.
He's a gentleman.
And shows you the value of Catholic discipline. Okay?
He actually said that. He said, I took the advice of a friend of mine that said, never embarrass your family or your school. Nick Sandmann was a gentleman, straight through it all. And then they tried to drag him into the gutter, and he did the right thing. I give his father a credit. That's what you have to do. You cannot permit them. You see, this is no longer, it's not about like, oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. They're not. This is what you have to do, and it's very, very important. And to be honest with you, he slammed the media. You know, it's funny. When I heard the speech, the thing that came to my mind particularly is David and Goliath. I mean, these are powerful people. They're wealthy. They have a machine. Mm-hmm. And here is a 16-year-old boy, timid 16-year-old boy. And he took them to the woodshed. He took them to the woodshed. Read, I think it's in the book of Samuel, the story of David and Goliath. It is simply that. And his speech, as Coach T-Mac said, it was amazing. It simply was. Mm-hmm. It shows you how God works, how he shames the strong with the weak. You know, God ultimately is in charge, and the fight belongs to God. And I'll be honest with you, that was simply sick, what they tried to do. And Molly Hemingway brought that out. You didn't hear any of them apologize to that kid. They tried to destroy him.
Have they apologized yet?
After the lawsuit? She said you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in the media to apologize.
How about they invite him on their show? How about Rachel Maddow invites him on the show? We're going to have on Nick Sandmann. Nah, not going to happen.
Well, do you know
Lawrence O'Donnell, the rest of them.
While he was speaking, someone on CNN called him a snot-nosed kid.
See, one more time. This is where I get angry.
I mean, like,
the guy who calls Nick Sandmann, right, what did he do to be called a snot-nosed kid?
That is just horrible. First of all, now he's 18, but he's still a kid. All he did was stand up for himself. You
know what I would tell the guy who called him a snot-nosed kid? Guess what? Nick Sandmann's got more money than you. Your life all comes down to money. That's all you people are actually worried about is money and power. Nick Sandmann now has more money than you. So call him a snot-nosed kid all you want. Who cares? So you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We have a comment section, and we're not even getting all the comments, by the way, because we're across about 10 or 15 different platforms right now. Thanks to Jonathan Ross at Holy Faith Media. Please follow Holy Faith Media both on YouTube and Facebook, okay? Please like and share and subscribe and all that fun stuff with the front line with Joe and Joe, which you can find on Facebook and YouTube also. Angry Catholic, just mentioned. We always support the Angry Catholic, Paul and Kristen Chiacha, so please support them. And if you're interested in supporting us financially on GoFundMe, we have an ongoing campaign. Support the front line with Joe and Joe. You'll find us on that platform, okay? And we, of course, appreciate all your prayers, and you're joining us, and our audience is growing, and we love you for it. And just as an example, Joe and I are staring at a bunch of equipment right here that we were only able to purchase for our radio show because of your generosity. So we really appreciate that.
So we're going to go to New York. This is a story that's very close to Joe Pasillo's heart.
If you thought I blew a gasket in the first segment, stick around.
So Deblasio stated this week that he has no plan for optional indoor dining. Mayor Deblasio suggested he is basically reluctant to restart indoor dining because it's this is interesting, actually. And to be honest with you, it's insulting. It's an activity for middle and upper income New Yorkers that clashes with his pledge to transform the Big Apple's tale of two cities with progressive policies. And I'm going to quote.
Before you quote, I want to preface something, okay? Remember what the theme and the title of this video is, okay? Contrast it objectively. Don't just listen to us caquerones. Keep talking. Look at the contrast between the uplifting, positive messages and speeches coming out of the Republican National Convention, talking about redemption and forgiveness. When Alice Johnson's story can make me cry because as Catholic men, we are all in need of redemption. We are all in need of forgiveness. We're given that by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That woman was given a chance at life because Donald Trump corrected an injustice that supposedly, our great leader Barack Obama never even thought about. Joe Biden never even thought about it. So my only point in cutting you up, and I'm sorry, is yes, the Republicans and their party and their convention sought to present America as a place where we could be risen up, we could rise, we could better our circumstance in life. Compare that to this communist in New York, and how him and people like him on that side of the aisle in that party are trying to tear America down one city at a time. Listen, please, to this story. This is
a quote from Bill Deblasio. He said, indoor dining, which is obviously a very optional activity, which some people do a lot who have resources and others can't do at all because they don't have resources. Deblasio is suggesting that eating inside a restaurant is only for people with thick billfolds. He ignores the cheap diners, the fast food eateries, and the pizza joints across the 5 boroughs, catering to cost-conscious New Yorkers. But this is what he's missing. This is where he doesn't connect the dots. Over half of the industry's 300,000 workers are currently unemployed. Now, Mr. Deblasio, this is my commentary to this. He says it's obviously a very optional activity. Well, he's right. It is. You can cook at home. But here's the thing, Bill. There's 300,000 people.
Right.
That's how they earn their living.
Right.
From high-end restaurants to diners.
Joe,
and this is what he doesn't get.
Or he doesn't care. I think he gets it. I think he doesn't care. I think his goal is to do what he said. It's a tale of two cities. It is in his mind. It's rich and poor. And rather than help people to raise themselves up financially, many of whom I work with, because I've told this audience before, I don't tell you where I work, but I'm in this industry in New York City. I work with liberals. I work with people who voted for Deblasio. They curse. People think that I get angry and I have a foul mouth. Okay, these are people that voted for him. You got to hear when I go to work and they say, "Joe, I got to vote for Trump. This guy's killing me. I can't stand this guy. I'm voting for Trump." Why? Because he just, as Joe said, he doesn't get it or he doesn't care. You want to hear something disgusting? So one of the business owners, one of the restaurant owners, and by the way, say a prayer for the restaurant owners in New York City who are probably going to file that lawsuit. He basically came out, de Blasio, and said, indoor dining is not opening until 2021. And for the reasons that Joe's saying, political reasons. Well, we're not catering to you rich people. It's only you people that go out to restaurants. So who cares about you? That's basically what he's saying. Okay.
But what about the poor people that work in that same restaurant?
He doesn't care.
That's what.
You're gonna laugh at this or be amazed that this came out of. This is a member of the administration of a major American city, I would say major American city, New York City. His press secretary, after a complaint from one of the major restaurant owners in New York City, okay, which is Landry's, which is owned by Tillman Fertitta, who also owns the Rockets. Okay, so Tillman goes on CNBC. He's a friend of CNBC, and he basically says, "I got people furloughed for months. I got thousands of employees. I got to get them back to work. They need to work. They need to make a paycheck. Okay, I'm going to take the guy at his word." Now, here's what de Blasio's press secretary said. He basically said, "This guy doesn't care about his employees because he's going to drive them back into unsafe working conditions so he can make another $1 billion." That's what he said. You know what he ended it with? This is the city administration telling a major business owner, an employer in that city. Here was the response from the press secretary. "Hey, Tilly, kick rocks. And by the way, the Rockets suck." We're dealing with adults here. This is a guy who puts, by the way, he owns high-end restaurants, this guy, okay, Tillman Fertitta. Bottom line is this, he puts good money in these people's pockets. His employees do well, okay, hotels and all that kind of stuff. And this is what the guy told him. kick rocks. Now, why am I bringing up the story? Because what Joe just said, tear it down, tear it down. What happens to 300,000 people if the restaurant industry is destroyed in New York City, Joe? Where do they go?
They leave.
Where are they going?
But they don't. See, this is where the disconnect. They think somehow, I think it's backfiring on them. They think somehow they're basically weaponizing these moves. And maybe they're blind to it. Maybe. Because people do get blinded by sin and they don't see things clearly. But there are a lot of people that do see this pretty clearly. I mean, I just read yesterday, Michael Moore, who's hardly a Trump fan. He basically said, I hate to give you a dose of reality. There are 60 million Americans that are absolutely electrified by Donald Trump's rhetoric. 60 million. And he said, and as far as Joe Biden, you could look this up. He said this yesterday. He said, they're not that enthusiastic. If you want Joe Biden to win, this is Michael Moore's words, not mine. He said, you have to have each of your friends who are going to vote for Joe Biden tell 100 people. This is a raging liberal whose objective, by the way, he predicted in 2016 that Donald Trump would win. So my point of the matter is this.
Well, at least he's
they
objective.
Don't connect the dots. You see, regular people who are not looking to buy the Houston Rockets, who work as a dishwasher or as a busboy or as a bartender and just make a living so they could eat.
Right.
And there were 300,000 of them. And I understand that there's laws and so, like, obviously, like, there's a little bit of politics you have to play. There's some health concerns you have to work into. But here's the thing. You got to play ball. What about them? No concern for them at all. The message is being communicated to the voter in America. And frankly, I don't think it's working for the Democrats.
It's not working. When you look at, and again, Joe and I don't put much stock in polls, but nonetheless, when you look at one group of polls last month, that same group of polls, okay, this month, and right now you have it. Right now it's a dead heat, and right now it's a dead heat in the battleground states. That is so bad for Democrats. That is so bad. We were talking about the convention. Do you know they got zero bounce out of their convention?
Yeah,
they got
I did read
they
that.
got a net nothing out of their convention. And why? This is what Joe and I say. Because we're right-wing ideologues? No, I don't like when people bash this country. I look at it objectively. I looked at the Republican National Convention over my lifetimes at times when I was like, like with Romney. But my point is this. If I'm a Democrat, I'm going to watch my party turn around and say nothing but America sucks. But also, that's the best you could do. America sucks. And like David Marcus said, we covered it last week. The Democrats are trying to pitch all you good people out there, and Joe and I and everybody else, that America sucks and it'll suck less under Joseph Biden.
But some 45 lives that keep lying Trump. This is what I'm talking about, 45 lives. That's in the comment box. You could tell a man something, but it's another thing when he sees it. The hypocrisy of politicians during this COVID crisis is so apparent to the average person. They're picking and choosing winners and losers. What do I mean by that? Walmart's open. It's packed on Saturday. So's Lowe's. So's Home Depot.
Costco.
Packed.
Walmart, all of them. BJ's.
Gym owners can't open your gym.
Church.
Restaurant. Can't go to your restaurant. They're picking and choosing winners. People see this. I'm going to tell you something that I observed in my own state, just a couple blocks away from my house. I live near my town pool. The state of New Jersey did a testing about 2 months ago when they were all trying to basically raise the numbers of people who were basically affected by COVID. It was a mass movement in New Jersey to test. They set up in this big parking lot tents. Everyone's social distancing, masks, 6 feet apart, long lines, all day long. It's the parking lot for the town pool. A month later, the town pool opens. Every Saturday, it's packed. This is 30 days ago. Everyone's social distancing. They're concerned. Again, they're picking and choosing winners and losers. And here's another thing. You don't have to just lie. You don't even have to believe Donald Trump. When you can't earn a paycheck, if you're among those 300,000 people who can't put food on the table, I got news for you. You're not getting their vote.
Right.
Or even if they hate you, they're not going to be enthusiastic about going out and voting.
Mm-hmm.
You see, they just are not connecting the dots. They don't get it.
Well, next time somebody tells me that they're the smartest people in the room, I'm going to turn around and say, what name do I always bring up? Robbie Mook. He took someone who could get elected. Hillary Clinton should have been elected, I would say, okay, and couldn't get her elected. So all the smart people are showing them, do me a favor, Joe, stop giving them advice. You know why? You're making too much sense. And they're going to take your advice, not that they're going to win. And here it is, like 45 Lies says Mexico didn't pay and she ain't locked up. She ain't locked up because the wheels of justice turn slow, and Donald Trump doesn't run the entire government, contrary to what the media tries to tell you. And as far as the wall, guess what, though? 45, it's getting built. The wall's getting built, and Mexico is paying for it. You want to know how? They're paying it through trade, where they're not robbing us anymore. So do me a favor. Just because somebody makes a prediction doesn't mean it's a lie. If something doesn't come to fruition, doesn't mean that he didn't intend to, or it's a lie. It's another one of those things. Do us a favor, okay? Because it's Trump lied 20,000 times. I'll tell you what, 45. You spend the next month of your life detailing and listing those 20,000 lies. Send them to us, and we'll read them online. So anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Joe, so where are we headed?
We're going to talk about the Democrats public shaming people, because this happened this week, and we have to cover it. And I want to bring us all back because I think it segues into what happened this week, and it'll give us some perspective. You may or may not remember, in June of 2018, there were a few instances that occurred in which Trump administration officials were heckled, and they were forced to leave restaurants. This happened to the then Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, who was heckled at a D.C. eatery, and then the then press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was asked to leave a Virginia restaurant by its owner.
By the owner.
The owner.
Right, you're talking about bad business, and also Ted Cruz. It happened to him. That happened to him, too. So
I want to give you a quote from a congresswoman, Maxine Waters. This is what she said. This is in 2018. And then I want to stop and have a discussion, because I cannot even believe that an elected official would say this publicly. I can't even believe it. This statement is so un-American, I can't even believe it.
You're talking about Maxine Waters?
Yes.
Well, she's been throwing bombs for 30 years.
Well, let me read this. This is what she said. These are her words. An elected person in this country. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if we see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd, and you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. Isn't that what happened to African Americans in this country, Maxine? Mm-hmm. You're an African American woman. Wasn't that wrong? I think you would agree, and so would I. So why would you suggest that should happen to anyone, for that matter? Why can't you just accept that there are people who don't have the same views as you? And how you have to beat them is present the facts and the argument and pass legislation.
Well, she's never.
That's how it works.
But she's never been that. You see, you're talking about the way politics in America is supposed to work. We talked about compromise a couple of weeks ago, because the Democrats are threatening. That's why we have to vote for the Republican Senate. The Democrats are threatening to do away with the filibuster. Okay, that requires a certain amount of civility, a certain amount of, let's say, understanding of what an American member of the House of Representatives is actually supposed to do. Maxine Waters has never been interested in debate or dialogue. She's been a bomb thrower, going back to Reagan, going back to Papa Bush, during the Clinton years, No, she's always been a bomb thrower. She's never had a debate in her life.
No, but it's a dangerous statement to make, and I can't believe she got away with it. She should be censured by making such a statement. We got someone from Brazil in the chat room. Hello, I love Brazil. I've been there 3 times. Rio, one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my entire life. Just had to say that.
But now, here's the thing. Joe just described to you where we were in 2018. Joe, if you don't mind, tell everybody where we are now. Because now you're talking about Maxine Waters and people liking her trying to shame public figures. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Kirstjen Nielsen, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. But this is where we are now. And it really should concern all you good people out there.
So this is what happened this week. This week, a viral video emerged of a woman being harangued by a large, mostly white BLM crowd. This woman was being screamed at with people right in her face because she refused to raise her fist in the air in a sign of solidarity. The fact of the matter is this, and this is the point I want to drive home, and then we can have our discussion. The BLM mob doesn't just want you to raise your fist like they tried to do with this poor woman. They want to rule you. And this is basically my argument for that, to support that statement. This is a glimpse of what comes after the rioting and the looting is over. Mm-hmm. When the attention and the ire of the social justice mob moves away from institutions and settles, as it always does, on ordinary people minding their own business. The message the left is sending is clear. We are winning. We are gaining control. If you want to be left alone, you will recognize our power. These are not people who really care all that much about improving Black lives or enacting substantive police reform or ushering in a more peaceful and just society. They do not want to share the republic, much less preserve it. They want only one thing: to rule over you.
Right. And yes, to somebody in the thing, the comment box says Antifa is neither left or right. Yes, they are. They are hardcore Marxists. That's what they are. That puts them on the political left. You could go back to Political Poli-Sci 101 and you could check it out. And basically, this is where we're at. So America as an experiment, as a nation, if these people are not pushed back, if you have to send in the National Guard, if the cops don't start doing their job, so that if anybody goes up to diners on a patio sitting outside and surround that person and start berating them and yell at them, if the cops don't do anything about it, this is going to be America. And what's going to happen? It's going to create more and more civil unrest. That's what's going to happen. Now, this, of course, is what the left wants. We've said it a million times because they want a violent overthrow of the United States government. So they need to create the civil unrest. So in their mind, because they're good Marxists and they love using words like dialectic, that's going to create a dialectical reaction that's going to move all the way up to the violent overthrow of the government or a civil war that will then lead to that. That's what they're after. They would love it for 100 guys that look like us to show up at that BLM. By the way, mostly white kids. Did you see the video?
Yeah, but then,
mostly white kids.
They're just young and
stupid.
Honest,
why don't you call them what they are? No, they're stupid.
It's very sad.
And their parents are stupider for letting their kids go out there in the street like that. My father, if I ever did that, my father would have handed me the biggest beating. He said, get inside and go read a book. What are you going to do, protest in the street?
No, but even still, that's not an American idea. Why can't you believe something different? If you want to change things, hurting people is not the way. If you want to change things, do it through the system. And I'll be honest with you, you're starting to see African Americans turn on this movement. We're going to cover a representative from Tennessee, Representative DeBerry. He's a congressman from Tennessee. Basically, they're not going to let him represent the Democratic Party in November. He's going to run as an independent, I heard. But he'll win. He'll win in Tennessee. But he's been there for 26 years. But he's basically saying this is not the movement. This is something I've been saying since the beginning. This is not the movement of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King shook the world. He did it peacefully. You have every right to protest. And frankly, if you were concerned about police reform, Tim Scott put up a pretty fair and balanced bill and you didn't vote for it. If you were concerned about African Americans, why aren't you in Louisiana right now where there's a horrible natural disaster helping the Black community? You've been given a lot of money from a lot of very wealthy people, corporations and sports figures. Where are you there? Do you really care? If you did, you'd be there. See, this is where, again, Americans have eyes. You could say everything and anything, but it's your actions that people see. And frankly, I'm not seeing it. These are the brown shirts for the Democratic Party. These folks that we're seeing, sadly, are thugs. And they're intimidating and trying to wreak fear and havoc into the hearts of America. And we have to stand up to them. And how do we do that? We do that by voting.
Right.
We vote them out. We simply vote them out.
I think they're going to. I honestly, I swear, this is just based on feel, but this is based on a lot of things that we're seeing. I think they're going to get their asses handed to them. I really do.
I hope so.
I think they're going to get trounced. By the way, Lincoln Project is a bunch of turncoat establishment Republicans, okay, who hate the middle class in this country just as much as the Democrats do. So don't talk to us about the Lincoln Project neocons, your George Bush leftovers, George W. Bush leftovers, your Anthony Scaramucci's, your Michael Steele's. They have failed us. As conservative Americans, they failed us. George Bush, I will make the argument, had an opportunity to be he could have been so impactful. In 2000, he had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And you know what he did? Nothing. And you know what he blamed? 9/11. In other words, and that's it. And then the Democrats took the House, took the Senate. And so we've been let down so much by the Lincoln Project Republicans. You know who I've not been let down by for the most part? Not completely, but for the most part? Donald Trump. And why, Joe? Primarily judges.
Well, and it comes down to this. And like I said, Americans have eyes, metrics that matter. Look at the ratings after the latest conventions. Juxtapose them to the ratings for the Democratic convention. These are metrics that matter. People are seeing. You could listen. Joe Biden can say anything he wants. So can the talking machine and the media, which is an extension of the Democratic Party. Listen, tell those 300,000 waiters and waitresses in New York City who are out of work and who are not going to be able to go to work for the remainder of the year. Tell everybody who basically is being harassed. Tell people in inner cities, a lot of them are black, whose community is being burnt to the ground. And the police are being told to have a light touch while their community is being torn apart. And after the Democratic Party is done with them, they're going to tiptoe away, and jobs are going to leave that community, and they're going to be left in absolute and utter chaos. As many cities in America, like Baltimore, Newark, parts of St. Louis, Camden, the list goes on, forgotten wastelands. This is what is going on. And frankly, it's all choreographed. I believe that. This is the greatest and biggest coup in the history of America. And if Americans allow this to take place by your vote, then shame on you. I will tell you this. I don't think they succeed. But if they do, shame on you. And as my mother would say, you get then what you deserve. You simply do. So what we have to do is we have to pray. As Catholics, and Rita, I saw you in the chat room, October 10th, we're going to pray. America needs Fatima for our country. I basically suggest, I throw that out to all our listeners, pray the rosary. Pray the rosary for America. Consecrate your prayers to the Blessed Mother for all you good Catholics out there. This is what we need to do. Because I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to give you a very horrible prediction. But if the race is close, what's going to happen is Joe Biden is not going to concede on the night of the election. And then it's going to go to the courts. And they're going to try to steal the election with the mail-in ballots through lawyering. So we have to hope that the defeat is sizable. Because if it's close, he's not going to basically say, I throw in the hat.
I think,
and then it's going to go to the courts, and then it's going to get crazy.
Well, like it did back in 2000. I was working on Wall Street back in 2000. So I remember what it was like. When something favorable for Gore, news favorable for Gore would come out, the futures were down hundreds of points. When it was positive news for Bush, then the market would rally. It was like this up until the point where the Supreme Court finally said. They sent it back to Florida and said whatever Florida rules, and then obviously it was all settled. If it's a couple of states, I don't think so. I honestly think that Trump is going to beat the crap out of them.
I hope so.
I really do. But if it's a couple of states, they may make some stink. You might be right, but they're going to go to the courts. And you know what's going to happen? Trump judges are going to defeat them. They're not going to get what they want through the courts. They're not going to get what they want. What did we say a couple of weeks ago? And Trump is the one who brought this up. Why do you think one of the main reasons why they blew a gasket in 2016? Okay, because Barack Obama didn't make too many judicial appointments. Because guess why, Joe? Because he thought Hillary was going to win. In fact, he was assured that Hillary was going to win. Why don't have to nominate judges? Hillary's going to win. Let her nominate the judges. Then Trump won. Do you know it's unprecedented? This is my understanding. This is what I read. For a new president to be coming in with 140 vacancies in the federal judiciary. That's what Donald Trump walked into because Barack Obama didn't fill those vacancies. He thought Hillary was going to win. Okay, that bothers them more than anything else. See, you should blame Obama for that. Don't blame Trump. But they wanted those judges, and now they don't have them. So to your point with the election, Trump now has 300 judges overall that he has gotten on the courts. So when they do take it to court, let's say they take it to court, they're going to come up against a Trump judge. Well, and you know what's going to happen? Biden's going to lose.
Well, I hope, and we have to pray again. Give it into the hands of Our Lady, because I'll be truthful with you. There is going to be a lot of finagling going on. There is no question. And if the race is close, they're going to try to take it to the courts, and they're going to try to steal it.
Right.
So we're going to pray. We're going to be out there. We're going to try to add a voice to the many voices out there, a voice of clarity, a voice of truth. Remember, don't be afraid to stand up for the truth. That is what we have to do right now. Our country needs you. It needs your voices. It needs your prayers. So please show up.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Please share this video. Let's get the word out there. The need to vote for Trump. The need to vote for Trump. The need to get the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hand. The need to keep the Senate. Let's keep saying it, screaming it from the rooftop. So please share this video. Share it with your friends. Like, subscribe, follow, hit the little bell on YouTube and on Facebook. Do all that fun stuff. Support us at the support the front line with Joe and Joe on GoFundMe if you want to support us financially, as you already have, and we're so grateful for it. And one other thing I forgot to mention is great channel, the Crusade channel. Please think about a 30-day free trial subscription to the Crusade channel. That's Mike Church's radio station down in New Orleans. Joe and I are on there once a week. We have a 3-hour show along with a really great lineup, not the least of which is Mike Church himself, the King Dude. The guy's got a great channel. And there's Rick Barrett, there's Aaron Barker, there's Joe and Joe, a real great resource for you, very entertaining. So think about a 30-day free subscription, a trial subscription, because we think you're really going to like it, and you'll probably end up subscribing. And remember, Joe and I do not benefit financially from that at all, okay? We just want to support the Crusade channel. So it's crusadechannel.com. In the meantime, we'll see you next week, and thank you again for joining us. And remember that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation that's going on everywhere. We'll see you next week.
Be well. Thank you for listening.